Okay.
Do you remember how to do this?
No.
Today we are going to be chatting through my birth story, and I brought my lovely husband here to help because we ended up doing an unmedicated birth, and so there's a lot of it that I feel like I don't really remember just because I was really in the zone in another world, and so I wanted to have his input into just like the story as a whole. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and let's go ahead and get started. So where to start?
Where to start? Let's see.
Well, let's start like way before, like just leading up. So obviously you go in to get checked every week when you're in like the last month. And I chose to do a cervical check every time. I know a lot of people don't prefer that, and that's totally fine, like whatever your preference is, but that was mine. And I didn't move for the last month entirely, which I knew like you can go from 1 to 3 in like a second or in like a month. But I was just kind of like, okay, we're starting somewhere. That could be a good sign. Don't ever let yourself think that could be, you just never know, really. I think I was 38 weeks. That's when I got my first membrane sweep, and I also chose to do that.
Oh yeah, that's a fun story. Yeah, it was 38 weeks and Mabry was going in for a routine checkup, and I'm in the simulator for training.
And we had chatted about it before, like if I had the option, would I do it or would I not? And we kind of said like, we'll wait.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it, and then maybe the next visit we would do it.
I'm in the simulator, and I get a text from my wife saying, they sweeped my membranes.
There was no service, and I tried calling him, but we had decided like maybe it would be a good push to just try it, and I was all for it. So I was like, let's just do it. My husband's not answering. Hopefully he's cool with this, because we figured, you know, usually women will go into labor within 48 hours of a membrane sweep if you're close to the end. So we were like really hyped up, ready for it to like go down.
Yeah.
And it didn't, obviously.
So when she got her membrane sweeped, I'm like, oh, dang, we're having the baby now. You know what I mean? And it was just like a lot to process. I hadn't really spent too much time like actually thinking about, oh, we're gonna have a baby.
We were like a little bit more ready for whatever. You know, a couple days came and went, nothing happened. We had another appointment. It was 39 in a few days, I think. And she checked me again. I had still not moved. So that was really discouraging, because I was trying all the things. I was doing the T, the dates, the like stretches, the positions, the walking, the curve, like everything you could think of. And at this point, I was like trying to naturally induce. So we were pumping, we were doing everything. So it was really hard, because it was just like, I don't think this is happening. And that's something that's really hard to go through, like especially knowing the statistics. 41 weeks and 2 days is like the average if you let a first-time mom go. So it's like hard, because you know that's the truth. You know you're naturally going to probably go past 40 weeks, but it's just hard to like sit in that, you know?
Yeah.
It made me think about all the moms who really just choose to do all these medical inductions like right away, because it's like, of course, your body is so tired. It has been working so hard, and you're so exhausted, and it's just such an anticipation. Like when you get to the end, you just want it to happen. And I think there's no right or wrong way to do that. Like if you choose to go in and get induced at 39, 40 weeks, like that's your choice, but it should be your choice. That's like the whole thing. On my last appointment, after that second membrane sweep, I had to speak to the OB at my practice. So I was under a midwife's care, but they have OBs over them. And this doctor sat me down and said, this is why we don't like women to go past 40 weeks, yada, yada, yada. Fine, whatever. I said, that's okay. Like, I am cool with giving my body a little push. I knew that was okay for me because I chose that. And so they scheduled an induction for that Thursday evening at 4 o'clock to start Cider Tech. So right now, what are we doing, babe?
We are going to the Women's Center. We've got a little lunchy snack for Mabry.
Chicky.
So she can
be fed before
be nourished and deliver a good baby.
Labor goes down. Yeah.
They say the last meal of your pregnancy is the most important meal of your pregnancy.
A little bit of a background. My child has not moved in like 3 weeks. So I've been sitting at like 1 centimeter, 60% forever. And my child has not dropped or anything, shown any signs or symptoms that she wants to come. Haven't had a single contraction up to this point. And I'm currently 40 weeks and 4 days. We chose to try Cytotec to try to ripen my cervix and see if from that my body can kind of like kick into labor. So still kind of aiming for this like natural hopefully as few interventions as possible birth, but we're just gonna take it one step at a time. So we're here, we're gonna check in, and then we'll see how this goes. This was not the original plan, but nothing ever goes to plan in labor, so.
Too blessed to be stressed.
Yeah. So a lot of moms can come in, and when they get induced, they get put on Pitocin right away, and that just kind of kicks contractions into gear. And usually Pitocin contractions are known to be intense, like way more intense than like your body's natural reaction to get up to strong contractions. So I knew I didn't want that right away. I hadn't even had a single contraction to this point, which is crazy. A lot of moms will have contractions here and there, Braxton Hicks, as you get close to the end. I had not had a single one. So I'm like, I'm not about to be put on Pitocin to like just make me feel like the strongest ones right away. So I asked for Cytotec. So we went in and we placed that at night. And their plan was to do 3 different doses.
One thing we didn't realize when we went in is that because you were on Cytotec, they had to have monitors on.
This was a misunderstanding, I think, because my midwife told me I didn't have to be on any kind of monitors or hooked up. And so when I came in, they decided to give me an IV, and I was like, why do I need this? Like, I'm not doing any of the monitors. And they were like, well, it's hospital policy to be hooked up. Like, you have to be hooked up. And I was so upset. I was like, this is not what I signed up for.
Okay, y'all, so we've probably been here for like an hour, and I'm currently hooked up on the monitors. It's not my favorite thing, but that's okay. We're waiting on a nurse to give me Cytotec, and then I'm gonna ask to get off these monitors.
My midwife explained to me that to get induced, it's medical. Like, you have to be medically observed. And so she said, when you're in active labor, that's when you can come off all the things. And so I said, okay, I just didn't understand that. And so that was just a little thing we had to get over.
Yeah.
So I got an IV, they just made it a hep block, and then they just had me on the monitors to like monitor her heart rate and stuff.
Not much to say about the Cytotec. There was one point they said the baby's heartbeat was getting too low.
Which I think they take extra precautions in hospitals, because I didn't believe that was absolutely necessary. So they ended up putting me on IVs through the night. I was like half awake. So I'm like waking up, they're like, baby's heart rate's dropping, we gotta put you on IV, on fluids. And I was like, okay, like I don't remember much because I was like trying to sleep.
Yeah, it's so funny because we were both just out of it.
You are. And they come in like every 2 minutes. I remember that. Every time I would like try to move to get comfy, they'd come in and be like, oh, we lost baby's heart rate. And it was like so annoying to me, because I'm like, I can't get comfortable, and yet you have to keep coming in and like giving me this look because, you know, you're losing the baby's heart rate.
It was
I'm just
kind of like,
dude, it was just hard.
Yeah.
So we got through that. That evening was a little bit rough, just trying to like get the hang of like what was going on, how we were doing things. By the morning, we had done two
rounds.
And then they went to place the 3rd, and I had gone up to like 3.
In the morning when we woke up, I think they expected Mabry's contractions to pick up.
Yes.
Because the Cytotec had worked. I think it just took them a little longer than they expected, but it had worked. At that point, we were just sitting around waiting for contractions to start after the Cytotec.
Right. They were like, we should be able to get somewhere from here. We were like, okay, cool. We'll, you know, get up, we'll walk around, we'll do whatever. We did a little bit of that. We tried to get on a ball. And from that point on, it was another couple hours. They checked me again, and I hadn't moved. And so we were like, okay, what's the next move? Because we can't be here for days and days, nor did I want to be there for days. My midwife was on call at that point, so she came in and was giving us options. We could start Pitocin, we could break my water, and we decided we would go the least amount of intervention possible, and we said, let's just break my water. Like, we're already here, we're already gonna have to have the baby in this span of time. So let's just break my water and hope she comes down to start contractions. We did that. I did start to have some contractions. They were very like crampy. I remember they were dull.
We moved because they came in, but what were you saying? You're saying this was our first night?
I have 2 stints of pretty good sleep. Mabry did not sleep so much, right, babe? Yeah. Doctor put Mabry on an IV overnight just to get some fluids going, and this morning they were going for the 4th Cytotec, and they checked her, and she moved to 275 and -1, up from 170 and -1. So they just decided that we're gonna stop doing Cytotec and see if the baby comes on out. And it looks like Mabry is having a little contraction right now.
Oh, it hurts. Yeah, I haven't had contractions before, but my water, it felt so weird to break it because it just keeps gushing out of me.
It's like pee.
Like right now, it's literally coming out of me.
Good.
But, oh, it's coming out. But it's like, I can feel a lot of like intense cramping too, so I'm pretty sure those are
Where?
contractions.
In here?
It's really low, but we're hanging in there. I know I look rough. I'm about to put makeup on.
No,
We're on the monitor for 20 minutes, and then I get to get up, which
And
is
your hair still
been my
looks really
dream.
good.
Thanks. That's the update.
So after the water broke, we're waiting for your body to kind of kick into gear, start those contractions. But they weren't really progressing like they thought they should be at that point.
Yeah.
So it's like mid-morning, Friday. We're just kind of sitting around. I hop in the shower, and Mabry's out.
On the ball, just bouncing in my room, trying to get in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
And the OB, who was the backup for my midwife, sneaks into our room and decides to confront me about how I needed to get on Pitocin right away or else I was going to have a C-section. And I was angry. I tried to be as polite as possible and share with her that that was not my plan and I was going to do it how my body could do it until I actually had no other choice. And she fought back with me hard. She was telling me that, you know, that's not how things go and she's been doing this for 30 some years and she knew what was gonna happen. And I was like, I appreciate your input, but I told her, I was like, I'm a doula, I know what I'm doing. And she's like, I understand that. Like giving me sass, but still trying to tell me that that was not how it was gonna go. And I just stood my ground. And honestly, this is where I wanna pause because this is the biggest negative experience I think of my whole birth. It's something where as a doula, I feel like we always teach like empowerment, right? Like we always say like, stand up, you know, say what you wanna say, but it is so hard. Like in a hospital setting, like I felt helpless. And it's like, we have the choice. I know I had the choice. But in the same way, like you just, there's so much going on and your body's like doing so much that like you almost feel like you don't have the voice, even though you know you do. And so it was just like, I'm telling this doctor, absolutely not, this is not what I want. And it was like, she just didn't want to hear it. And it was just like, excuse me. And that's the thing, that's like what happens in so many cases, I think, for moms, where it's like, well, no, that's not what I wanted. And then it ends up being a terrible experience or a traumatic one because they didn't get what they wanted. And it's like, that's not how it should be. So if that's you, just like continue to tell yourself that because it is so hard. Like I have been through it now. Like I get why moms have such a hard time with this because in the medical sense, there's a lot of rules that are in place for a reason, but there are some that are just routine and they're not necessary. Yeah. So that was frustrating.
I would just say that I think in that instance, you were alone, right? You didn't have your birth team with you. That was just some OB who we had never talked to before, who came in kind of over the head of her midwife, who was the primary provider at that point, and just spoke to you at a time when you were alone.
And projected her opinions and practice onto me, which wasn't what I desired.
She was just coming from a place where she didn't understand, you know, what our values were. Exactly. And honestly, she's looking out for her bottom line as well. You know, her bio was that she specialized in like these high risk situations.
That's like a real life scenario, I think, that may benefit some moms in labor situations just because it does happen. Even in the most natural, unmedicated aim for a birth, you might still encounter this kind of thing. So that happened. My midwife came back in. You could tell she kind of like snuck in around her. She said, I was hoping she wasn't gonna come see you, and which was just making me angry at this point. I was bawling. I remember sitting on that ball and I was so upset and frustrated that I was just crying to my midwife. Like, I know what I want and I want my body to do what it can do. And she was very receiving, very like sweet about it. You know, she's like, yes, like we have a plan, like we're gonna go in, you know, doing everything we can. And so I really appreciated that. That kind of like calmed me down a little bit.
And I came out of the shower and I was like, what happened here?
That was just an experience in itself. But that's why I think it is so important to have like your team for you. Like when you pick your team, when you pick your providers, you better have those kind of conversations about like what you want and like see if they receive that well.
After that, we waited a little longer. I had a conversation with our midwife who said, hey, look, I know you want to be, you know, as natural as we can, but I know you also don't want to be in here all week. You know, like you're kind of on the clock, your water has started, and we're trying to avoid a C-section, right? Because once you break the water, it's like 48 or 72 hours, just depending on your hospital's policy, before the baby has to come out naturally. Beyond that point, they start doing some serious like C-section medical interventions. So she had kind of explained to us, okay, well, we can see if Pitocin will kick things off for you, because that's what they've been trying to do throughout this whole process, was kind of get things going so Mabry's body, which is designed to birth, can pick up where the medicine left off and kind of take it through to the end. So she had explained to us, in a normal induction, you know, they may start you on like a higher dose of Pitocin just to get the ball rolling. And for a lot of these moms, they stay on Pitocin throughout, they get the epidural. But she had explained to us that she can kind of bring it in half doses and
like
then
start
taper it
off
off.
really small.
Yeah, start it off small and then taper it off as the contractions kind of pick up.
So that was like our hope. At this point, we had nothing else to look forward to other than like, we gotta start Pitocin. We did everything we could do at that point to like get my body, and it just still was not doing the things. So we were comfortable, as my midwife gave that option of giving a low dose. I was cool with just being like, okay, let's try to see if this will do it now.
And at this point too, you know, after the OB came in, it was not looking super good for our natural birth plan.
It was
Let me just say, like,
Hunter talks about this now, and he's like, looking back, like, it was rough.
I knew your headspace was going to be something that was super important.
Yeah.
Because so much of giving birth, I think, is like how you're staying on top of it mentally. And enough things were snowballing just kind of in the wrong way that I could really tell, like, wow, we're getting in a negative headspace here.
Like he could feel that I was not thinking this was gonna go well, because I was just so down on myself, so angry at the situation.
Pitocin kicked off those contractions, and those first contractions were really hard on you.
Really?
I think.
See, I don't remember a lot of this.
Yeah. So we're on the Pitocin, and these contractions are starting to come, and I think because we needed the Pitocin's help, Mabry was a little bit behind the 8 ball when it came to like being in babyland, you know? So they started bumping up the Pitocin.
And we were like walking the halls, and we were really trying to keep myself moving. I was like on the ball at this point.
Yeah. For the most part, from here out until she came, it was just really kind of not super intense, but it was just constant. You know what I mean? The pace, once we started going, it didn't really let up. That's when the work really started.
Work.
It was work.
It was.
For Mabry, for sure.
For you.
Yeah, for me too. And here's the thing, guys. Women are designed to do this.
Yeah.
We just got to figure it out as it goes, you know? And
we decided to get checked again. Checked was like a 3 or 4. And so I was like, it's been hours. I feel like we're about in the same spot. So I was just like, this is going to be a nightmare. We're probably going to get checked again. I'm still going to be at like a 3, or like, I haven't even hit active labor yet, which I knew was like getting more intense. So I was nervous, because I was just like, we're going to be here forever. And this is just going to get worse and worse.
Which, I mean, to give her some credit, it was not going how we imagined.
Yeah.
Hey.
I'm so puffy.
Oh.
A little bit, yeah.
You on some chapstick?
I'm sure, yeah. Nice, thanks. Thank you. I have my water. Oh, I think it's coming. Yeah, it is. You're good.
Then we got one more exam, and it showed a little bit of progress.
Yeah. She said, girl, you're at a 6. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I was so confused.
She couldn't believe it. It was just a little bump of morale she needed to kind of get into babyland, get into the zone, and like the finish line was in sight.
Yes.
This is where the magic.
This is the positive that overtook the entire story, I think. That's like why I can look back on my birth story and be like, this is awesome. Like, this worked. Even though a lot of things didn't go to plan, right? I don't know. After that, we were like, okay, like, we're in the zone. Let's do this thing. So every contraction, Hunter would be like down doing some like hip squeezes, some like sacral pressure. And so that was super helpful. And at this point, I could notice that like I could not go through a contraction without that. Like, I would be like, okay, it's like coming, like push on my back, like I need it. And we would be like walking the halls, and we would just like squat and like on the ground when I had one. And so we did that for a little while because I was like, it was getting crazy intense. And then I remember I was getting discouraged because it just felt like it was just like constant, right? Like they were so close together, and they had been close since the beginning. So that's another thing, that like a lot of moms can get some like progressive contractions where they start slow and they're like 15, 20 minutes apart. Mine, as soon as they started, were like within a minute or under. And so I was like, holy crap, dude. And so I remember my midwife could tell like I was just getting like a little bit like just kind of like exhausted, honestly. And she was like, dude, you know, you have a lot to go, obviously. We got to do this thing. So why don't you rest? So we put me in the bed with a peanut ball. And I just kind of like laid there. I remember she gave me like a foot massage or something.
Yeah, she really just tried to take, I think, some of the anxiety and pressure off you.
Yeah.
Because I think you were in this space like, I need to be up, I need to be active, I need to like walk this baby out of me.
Yeah.
Which I think really did help us at points.
Yeah.
But it was just so nice having Holly there to be like, okay, let's try something different. And I think the anxiety kind of came off, and it allowed your body to progress even more.
Yeah.
But you were still pretty, like, you were feeling it at that point.
Yeah.
And I think you were in a better headspace, but you were definitely feeling it at that point. You were tired.
Yeah.
I was getting tired.
Looking back on them, I do not remember like the pain of the contractions. I remember them being intense, but I think like from that point on, I really did like learn how to just zone in. Like if I wouldn't have, like I would have felt every single contraction that continued to get stronger, and I would have been freaking out. Like it would not have been fun.
Yeah. But I could really tell just looking at Mabry, she was in a completely different headspace.
Yeah.
Almost in her element, not super reactive to what was going on around her. It was just kind of like she was in a daze. She was focused.
So we did that for a little while, and then we were like, let's check me again. So we laid down, and she's like, girl, you're at an 8. Like, let's hop in the tub. And I was like, shut up.
She couldn't believe it.
I was like so excited.
Yeah, and I think having that goal of getting in the tub.
To transition so I could like get in the water.
Yeah.
For like some relief.
Helped her get through it so much, because this is amazing. We're laying in bed laboring, and Mabry's doing great, just kind of in her little zone, like her blinders are on. She's just like getting through the contractions, and she's telling me, this is pretty funny, she's like, transition's coming, we got to be ready for transition. Those are the worst ones, you know. And we kind of talked about in our birth course, transition, worst time, that's when a lot of moms like turn back. Mabry had that goal of the water birth, you know. So we're looking forward to the tub, and that was enough to get us through transition, because right after Mabry said transition's coming, transition's on his way, she was in transition.
And I had no idea. I thought I was like still in just like the early active labor point. So it was crazy to me that like just getting through them all, like you get there, you will. And
but that
like,
just showed how much of a grasp like she had on it and her mental, you know what I mean? She was in a lot of pain, but she also, I think, knew that she could handle what was being given to her. It's really just amazing. It's super cool.
Yeah. I think that's like my biggest thing. It is such a mental game. And I remember hearing that and like learning about that and hearing other moms that did it naturally be like, you just got to have your mind under control, and that's like how you get through a natural labor. And I was just like, what is that? Like, okay, like I just tell myself it's gonna be fine, it won't feel anything, and it's that's how you do it, like 100%.
And just stay in the moment. If
you are just like getting through one at a time, and you just like just bear down and breathe through them, you get there. Like you will. You just distract your brain. Your brain doesn't feel the pain as pain because like you're telling yourself it's not pain, you know, even though it is. Like it is. But I think that's just super important in an unmedicated labor.
Here we go. Mabry's at an 8. Getting the pool ready. About to meet Roey. She's taking them like a champ. Look at these contractions, y'all. She's had a couple that top out the chart and go across a whole line. It's crazy.
You took me off Pitocin like what, 30 minutes ago?
Probably like an hour ago.
Okay.
She's been off Pitocin for about an hour now. And
Holly thinks we should get in the tub.
Holly says it's time to get in the pool. So, how do you feel?
It just doesn't feel real yet.
Baby's super low. Sitting up right now. Mabry's been in the zone. She's locked in. She's making her daughter proud. Roey, if you're watching one day, we love you so much, and we're just so excited to meet you.
Yeah.
And do your homework. And eat your broccoli. And don't date any boys until you're like 16. And stay off social media. Alright.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I'm done. Love you. Bye.
So we hopped in the tub and I actually ended up pushing for 2 hours.
Yep.
That was crazy.
So we got in the tub at about 8 o'clock and there's just like a buzz in the air, right? Mabry, as she was going through transition, you know, the nurses' aides are in the room, like, pumping the tub, like, getting the hot water going in the tub. Yeah. So the pace, I mean, there was magic in the air.
Yeah, it felt just like a lot more
the
uplifting.
end was in sight.
Yeah.
And when Holly, our midwife, turned to Mabry and said, "It's time to get in the tub," Mabry looked like a little kid on Christmas. You know what I mean? She was so excited to get in the tub.
I was pumped.
And it was very cute and very pure because she was still so much in the zone, but we could kind of tell, like, we're in the home stretch.
Yeah.
So it was just a very special moment.
Yeah.
Honestly, to be able to watch your wife work through so much adversity and achieve a goal, which is to get to the tub almost completely unmedicated, it was like amazing.
Aww.
A super gratifying experience, and we gained so much. Like, they earned some serious respect when they're pushing these babies out, and it was amazing. It was like those guys who climb Everest. Whack, you know what I'm like? Who cares? There was an 8-pound baby in her stomach, and it came out between her legs, and it hurt the whole time. Like, it's amazing.
It was
fellas.
so cool.
For you first-time dads out there, just get ready because it's a super cool experience.
Yeah, and he was great all the way, like, especially when we got in the water. He was, like, I remember, like, you were just so encouraging. You were just like, oh, like, you got this. Every time I had to get up to push, like, you were just like, yes, babe, like, keep going, you got it. And it was just, like, so cool to hear that. I would say that for partners and spouses, that is so encouraging. Those words mean more than you think they do. So I was pushing and pushing and pushing. I remember saying, she's not coming. So it was just so tiring at this point when you just straight up push for hours. And I'm just like, holy crap, here we go. Holding
her combs.
Yeah, I had my combs.
She had the white glove on to cover
my IV.
Her IV.
Yep.
So she was laboring like Michael Jackson.
We might have to go get her. Oh, she's chilling.
Oh, yeah. There it is.
Hey, Boogie. Uh-oh. All right, Roey came to join us. We'll see how well this goes. So, yeah, I was pushing. I remember Holly, my midwife, at one point she said, all right, Mabry, like, we'll give you, like, a couple more pushes, and then if she's not, like, progressing down, then, like, we're gonna get out of the tub. And I was like, no! Like, I was so set on this being the thing that I did that I remember pushing so freaking hard. Like, I was like, we are getting this child out of me.
It was insane. I thought I was gonna have a brain aneurysm just watching how hard she was pushing. And there were, like, probably 20 nurses.
There were so many nurses
in the room because I guess a water birth is kind of a rare thing in this hospital. And so they were all...
It was so cool. This was, like, the craziest, like, coolest part because towards the end when we were, like, she was almost out, there were nurses just surrounding the tub. Like, everyone was cheering for me. Everyone, when I got to pushing, was just like, yay, you got yes, come on.
Baby, go.
Like, it was just so fun. And that's the coolest thing. When you're in labor, like, just to have all these people cheering you on, like, it's just such a cool feeling because, like, you know, in that moment, like, you can do it. Like, you're going to do it. And it's just like, dang, but.
And just, I don't know, the support of other women in there, too.
Yeah,
I think.
it was super cool.
Just like, it just kind of felt like a celebration of what you guys are made to do.
Yeah.
And it was a spiritual experience. God is in the room for things like that.
Yeah.
Like it or not, like he's there.
Yeah.
So
it was super cool. Pushed her out. She came out 10:02.
Man.
It was crazy. It was exciting.
Just the most beautiful thing we'd ever seen.
It was super special. We got to like pull her up on, my cord wasn't super long, so I could just pull her up onto my knees. Like I couldn't bring her up. Yeah. She was like, that's okay, like we'll just leave her like on your lap until, you know, because we wanted delayed cord clamping, so we hung out for about 10 minutes actually.
Yeah.
And
it was just awesome. Just looking at her and sharing that moment together. I think I was in a state of shock. It was just so emotional.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And I remember looking at her hands. And I don't know why I said this so much, but I was like, her hands are huge. Do you guys see her hands? But I don't know, just seeing your baby for the first time, her hands were a little bigger than I expected. And I was like, why am I the only one freaking out about this? Like, I was asking nurses, like, are those like giant baby hands? And they were just like,
no, dude, chill.
It's okay, Dad. It's fine.
Yeah, so that was just like a sweet moment. We got to just hang out in the water.
I got to cut the cord, and it took a couple, like, that thing is thick. Yeah. It's not like cutting a ribbon.
No.
It's like cutting a
saw
garden
it.
hose.
Yeah, right. So we did that, and then we were able to hop out. And I remember my midwife was like, we're gonna get you out of the water to make sure, we gotta get your placenta out and then make sure you tore or anything. And I literally told her, I was like, I tore. I know I tore because I could feel everything. Like after that, like endorphin, adrenaline rush, like kind of dies down. You feel your body. And I was just like, oh my gosh, yep, we tore because I can feel it. After the fact, she was telling me how I tore because as she was crowning, she had her hand up by her face. And so my midwife had to get in there and like sweep her hand down. Yep. So that is why I tore. She was like, if she didn't have her hand up there, you probably would have been fine. And so
she crowned. Mabry pushed for 2 hours, and Roey crowned 30 minutes into the pushing. So the last hour and a half of pushing was just trying to get Roey through because she was like this.
It was wild. We were at the hospital a little longer than we wanted to be. Like, you're not comfortable in a hospital. Like, you're not.
Yeah, we weren't super geared up emotionally or just like super practically for the next couple days we were gonna spend in the hospital. Yeah,
that's the stuff people don't talk about. But you got medical people coming in every hour, checking on you, waking you up. It's just like, oh my gosh, I just want to sleep with my baby.
Yeah, and you're trying to figure out how to take care of the baby.
And then I remember because she had swallowed so much amniotic fluid, she wasn't really eating, and they were super concerned. They were like, we have to feed her. We got to get her on formula right away. And I was just like, what? We met with the lactation consultant, and she was like, well, babies eat like this much in the first 24 hours because their stomach's so small. And so I was like, why are we stressed about her eating if she's like, one, has so much fluid she's trying to get out? Like, that's why she didn't want to latch. Yep. And then, like, she doesn't need that much anyway. So it was just kind of like a lot being in the hospital setting, but it was fine. It worked out. That was kind of our experience as a whole. In general, it was a good experience.
Yeah, it was great.
For what we couldn't control, Oh, I was gonna ask you a question. This is just more for partners and spouses who might be a little bit to the idea of like unmedicated, because earlier on in my pregnancy, I remember I mentioned this to you, and I think you weren't really sure about it. And I think that's okay. He really was just kind of like, I don't know. And he would ask a lot of questions. Like, you'd kind of push back on things. Like, are you sure you want to do this? And what about this? And why do you care to do that? And so I think it's important, and I think this is probably valuable information just for like dads out there who are probably in the same boat, because it's just confusing. You don't know what you don't know. You kind of came to a place eventually of realizing like why it was valuable. Yeah. So like, if dudes are watching this, do you have something to say to the guys of like how you became more supportive, I guess?
Yeah, I kind of didn't see the point right away. Like, why? If we know a doctor can get it out 10 out of 10 times safely, if all goes to plan, like, why would we try to mess with that? It seems like there's some risk to going unmedicated. Why would you even take the chance? And just a couple things I learned. It's really not risky, and it's not really even a medical procedure. It's like a natural phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
So if the mom is in a space where she's healthy, the baby's in a space where she's healthy, there's nothing really barring you from that. In a hospital setting, it did give us some kind of peace of mind, but we could have just as easily done this like in the backyard, you know? And I think that kind of goes into why it's important to moms to have these unmedicated births, because, you know, this was something they were made to do. And it's something they're totally capable of doing. And it's kind of an experience that's unique to mothers. It bonds them to their baby immediately. And you just want to be as present as you can for that moment when the baby first comes, right? You don't want to be kind of in and out with drugs.
And this is like specifically to the people who want unmedicated births. So like if you choose to have an epidural, that's great. Like that's your choice. And there's nothing wrong with that. But this is specifically from our experience to other moms who kind of like want that same experience.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong going more medicated. But I'd say if your partner wants to go unmedicated, like there are definitely some serious pros to going that route.
How would you like prepare dudes for like what that experience is like, because it is different from a medicated birth?
Birth has like this pace to it, right? It kind of follows a script, and things can go off script a little bit, but generally the body does the same thing every time a mom gives birth. And I think kind of knowing the pace, knowing the game plan, how things go down can help you to keep your wife focused on where she needs to go.
Yeah.
And when you bring yourself in on the information side, knowing what's going down, not being like just clueless dad, I think it makes it feel like a team experience.
Absolutely.
And emotionally, I think mothers in that space are very raw. Just being there to kind of be a source of strength when, you know, moms are feeling kind of alone, I think helped you a lot.
That's something I would just say, like I remember early on being really nervous because I was like, oh, he's not on board for this. Like I want this. And I remember being discouraged because I'm like, I don't know how to get my husband on board with what I want. And I think that's important. Like if, you know, you get to the end and you still feel like you have a spouse or a partner who doesn't really care for your opinions or your desires in this process, that's super hard. And I'm really sorry if that's you, because I get that. Like that is a huge part of how you get through it, is having that support team. And so, you know, I think spouses especially bring this emotional level and emotional support to the birth space, and that is huge. Like if you don't have that, and I mean, you can find that in someone you just care about. It doesn't have to be like a husband, but I think that's just super important. And so that is a big one. And then how he said, I think educational, like if he knew, we chose to go through an online birth course together because I think that really bonds you. That helps, you know, everyone in the whole situation kind of know what's to come. And if you know, knowledge is power, right? Like if you know what's going to happen, like it's going to be okay, you know, versus like being, you know, scared. What's this? And what does that mean? And why is this, you know? So I think that helped a lot too. Like even like knowing that you knew what was going to go down, because it just kind of brought a piece to the whole situation about like what was going to happen and how it was going to go. So that was also really important.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the piece is like crucial to letting your body do what it needs to do. And I think it's a lot harder to do that alone. Absolutely. You know? And for a lot of us, I think maybe when you were born, your dad wasn't even in the room, or, you know, was just kind of there standing in the corner with the scissors, the scrubs on, like maybe ready to cut the cord or whatever. And that's kind of the way recently it's always been done, but it is not the best way, you know? Yeah. And I feel more bonded to my baby because, you know, I was very present during her birth.
Right.
And it didn't seem like...
You played a huge part in getting her earth side.
Yeah. And it could only, I mean, it would have been a whole lot more painful if I just said, well, I'm going to let my wife figure that out.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt like a little bit of investment up front, and I was like emotionally exhausted. Like the next week, I I was just out of it emotionally. Like, I had a heart, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like a lot.
I was drained
A lot
emotionally.
to get, adjusted to after such an experience.
But I would take that 10 out of 10 times before I would have just walked out of the room and said, you know what, it's not worth it, because I think it was so much easier on the back end because the birth went so well. Yeah.
Moving forward to like our next birth experience, like what do you think maybe you do differently? What do you feel like you're prepared more for?
Yeah. I think one thing we could have looked at and spent more time learning about was after the baby comes. Like, we didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was super important beyond like the golden hour. Mm-hmm. Right? We knew that first latch is super important.
Yeah.
But we didn't really know, okay, when should we be sleeping? How much should the baby be eating?
Yeah.
How much should the baby be sleeping? We were just kind of following the advice of the nurses. And nurses are great. It's one of the hardest jobs I think you can get yourself into.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is just, this is what we like to see. And just kind of realizing like your baby's going to be okay.
Yeah.
If she's not eating a ton of food right after she's first born. I was under the impression that, you know, she'd be taking full bottles of milk right away. Yeah. And like your spouse probably isn't producing milk at that point. She's probably just producing colostrum.
Yeah. And usually for moms that doesn't come in until like 2 or 3 days out anyway. So like my body really wasn't, I didn't have a lot of milk coming out that first day at all. So that was just kind of hard. But
so we had a lot of added stress on our plate just because, you know, we're like, oh, why isn't she eating?
Yeah.
And everything was totally fine.
Yeah, so that's pretty much our birth story. We did post about it on Facebook, but I did think it'd be cool to just kind of be able to chat through it, because we left a lot of those like little details out, and I think it's kind of cool to see like from beginning to end how a birth can go and a labor can go, because everyone's labor is going to be so different. But I think, yeah, it's just kind of cool to get to see.
What would you want to do next time?
Like differently?
Yeah.
I definitely think a home birth would be most ideal. Like, I kind of wanted that beforehand, but we moved so fast. We just found a provider and we went with it. But I really believe that my laboring would have gone so much smoother if I wasn't in a hospital. Like, that I think was the root of my anxiety and why things were painful and why things were uncomfortable and scary in the beginning, because I was just so uncomfortable in the environment. Yeah. And I think if I was able to just labor at home, that was my hope, obviously, to like just labor at home for as long as possible and then just jump to the hospital. And that just didn't happen. So if, you know, that could work out to just be able to like stay home until I gave birth, that would be cool, because then we'd be in our own space. We could just like chill. So I don't know, but overall, like now I think it's just a little easier, right? Like now I just know what the feeling is. That was a big thing for me, like beforehand, like what does it feel like? And I think every mom has that, right? Like you're just like, I don't get it. Like, how does it feel? And I even had like, I know a lot of people follow me on here for birth doula reasons. And I've had a lot of questions about like, how are you a doula if you haven't had a baby? Like that was a question from a couple years ago that I got. And like, how do you feel confident to, you know, train, coach moms when you haven't even felt it? And I think there's a piece of that where you're always going to feel a little bit like, am I capable to do this? But I think really it's, if you know the facts, if you are educated to coach that kind of thing, you can do it. Because I literally just went off of what I learned and what I knew to be true, and I was able to do it. So I don't think there's gonna be an instance where, you know, you can't. You're very capable.
Yeah, I think that was just an important point you hit on. Like, there's homework you can do beforehand.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot that you should do to prepare beforehand.
Yeah.
I think it's such a marathon. Like when people would say that as like an expression, like birth is a marathon, I was like, yeah, okay. No, it is. Like it's a physical marathon for your body. You know, they say just like you wouldn't just jump to go sign up for a marathon and start running, you wouldn't do that for birth either, because it really is so much on your body that you have to really train your body and your mind to do, that it does take prep work. And so that's another thing I would say as a little tip is like, if you are aiming for this, do the work beforehand. Like, don't just assume you're gonna go in and it's gonna be easy, because it's not easy. It's a lot of work.
And I thought I would be completely useless because I've never been around a birth. You know, I don't even have those parts. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like just from a knowledge standpoint, like getting involved on that side, although I was kind of kicking and screaming to do our birth course at the time, like it paid off in dividends.
Yeah, so that's another tip. Definitely go through a course in some way. If it's like an in-person class, do that with your partner, because it is a joint experience, and I think that's important to have an unmedicated birth. Prepare, do the work, be in the right mind space, and then in the words of Bridget Tyler, it's a practice. It's the de-stressor breath. I feel like that was kind of what got me through contractions.
Yeah, having something like that to lean on, like we did one breath and one pressure pretty much the entire time. That was a de-stressor breath.
Yep.
And I was doing the sacral pressure.
Yep.
And that got us through like 9 hours of labor.
I think it's, what is it? If you do in 4, out 6. If you do that 6 times, that's about a minute long. So
and that's a contraction.
You'll get through an entire contraction. So I just remember counting through my breaths, and like then they would come down, and it'd be like, oh, okay, we did it, you know? Yeah. So that's it. Another big one I would lean on. I've seen a lot of other moms say that is what helps. And it does. So we're gonna probably end that here. Anything else?
And this is what we got.
This is what we got. Say hi, Momo. All right, that's it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up.
Yep.
And we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.
I love you.